Hey, you guys, welcome. I'm super excited you're here joining me on this journey towards a higher sense of self love. And today we're going to be diving on, like I say, one of the foundational points when it comes to holistic love. We're talking about love today in every area of our lives. I think many times, when we hear about love, it really comes down to relationships, right? And today I really want to focus on love as a holistic approach, realizing that I want to talk about the 8 dimensions of wellness. We're going to be talking about love, finances, occupational. Those are just some of the things that we don't really equivalent. We don't realize that our level of love in those areas matters as well. And that if we have, I like to think about an analogy is if I have a tire, if I'm driving a car and one of my tires has a nail, it's going to be a bumpy ride, right? And that's kind of how it is. And we don't have a holistic approach to how we are going about our lives. If we're stressed in our finances, our relationships can only get so far, or we're only going to be so satisfied with our jobs. It's that when we look at our life as a holistic approach, we can really dial in and figure out the areas that need more attention. So I'm super excited to be here with you. My name is Sam. I'm a fitness entrepreneur, certified wellness coach, and holistic coach, but most importantly, co-creator of the 8 dimensions of wellness. And today, that's exactly what we're going to be talking about today. Because I realized that, I found myself in a season where I just wasn't fully satisfied. I felt like something was just missing. I was like, man, I had the dream job. I had the dream relationship, but it just felt like something was missing. Like I couldn't be fully satisfied. And I realized what it was that my finances were tough. And that finances were putting stress on my relationship. And since that stress was on my relationship, I started putting my health on the back burner. And as my health got, I was being put on the back burner, I wasn't quite being as social as I was. My social life and I realized that, man, it was when I was one dimension, it wasn't doing well. It started to really diminish other areas of my life. I realized that life wasn't just because you're winning it in one area, you might be sacrificing it in one area, and that's going to limit the elevation that you can get to this next level. So, and that's what we want to talk about today. Is I'm talking about a holistic approach to life. We're going to be talking about the 8 dimensions of wellness when it comes to self-love, because I believe love is the foundation of everything. I want you to hear that today. Love is the foundation of everything, not just your relationships, not just in your finances, not just in your job, but it's in every area. And I think many times we are taught to remove love from the situation. Like, hey, this is my job, so I got to remove love from that. But what if I told you today, love is the foundation of how we appreciate our jobs, how we perform at our jobs. And that's exactly what we're going to be diving into today and defining some of that in areas for you as well. And that's why I'm super excited to be here with you, because we're going to be diving in, yes, into the 8 dimensions of wellness and why they're important. I want you to hear that today. Can you what when you think about the 8 dimensions, maybe you're like, man, when it comes to dimensions of wellness, what are some of the most popular dimensions when we think about wellness, right? You think about health. When I think of wellness, I'm thinking about my health, right? You think about health, you think about, like, when it comes to wellness, I think about nutrition, um, how much you work out. I want you to think about health in a holistic approach, a bigger picture for our lives, because that's what you deserve, a bigger version of life. You don't deserve a limited life, but something bigger. Who out here wants a bigger life? Who out here wants more out of life? Who out here wants everything life has to offer? And realizing that I don't just have to have love just in my relationships, but I can have love in my workplace. I can have love when it comes to my finances. I can have love when it comes to my social aspect of my life. That I can have love spiritually as well. And I think we limit love are the opportunities we give it. I want you to hear that today, that we limit love and the opportunities that we give it. We limit love and the way that we have been told it should be given. We limit love off of our previous experiences. We limit love and what was taught to us. But I think there comes a point as an adult that we have to take that ownership and that we can't just lean on others' understanding. We have to find that understanding for ourselves. And that's what I want to give you that opportunity today with as we dive on into this topic of the 8 dimensions of wellness, because that's what we're going to be talking about today. Because maybe you were like 8 dimensions. I'm just thinking about one right now. And I'm thinking about my health when it comes to wellness. When it comes to love, I think about it just comes to my relationships. And that's what I want to give you that opportunity to reflect. So I would love for you to just start to think about what are some of those dimensions that I would like to have more loving. I want you to grab yourself a little list, write some of those things down. Like, man, if I could have an area where I had more love, more clarity, more growth in, what would that be here today? What would that be? What would get me to that next level? What if I knew that if I was winning at my job, how would that translate into my relationships? If I was winning in my finances, how would that translate into my health? Because when we have clarity in every dimension of our lives, I believe that gives us more confidence. I want you to hear that today. When you have more clarity, you have more confidence. And maybe you found yourself looking to grow in certain areas, but not having that confidence. But most importantly, even worse, not having clarity in the direction to go. I like to say is, when we don't have clarity, we don't have the map. And how long would you expect to get to your destination without having a map that's going to get you there? And that's exactly what having clarity in each of these dimensions of your life does. When you have clarity in your finances, when you have clarity in your occupation, when you have clarity in your spirit, like in your spiritual realm, you allow yourself to remove the guesswork, but to get to work. I want to hear that today. Who out there is ready to get to work when it comes to their goals? Who out there is ready to get to work when it comes to dreams? But most importantly, who out there is ready to make success inevitable? Because it can be. It can be inevitable when you are consistently in clarity, using clarity and confidence, moving towards your goals, removing the guesswork, but getting the results you desire. And that's exactly what I'm here to help you find today. And I'm excited you guys are here. So, hey, we're going to get to our first slide, the 8 dimensions of wellness and why you need them. It's a holistic self-love approach to a life alignment. I want you to hear that today. It's not just so much about, getting to the destination, but we want to make sure the actions we take, the decisions we make, the choices we make are in alignment with what we want out of our lives. And I think the best thing I can hear today is I want you to hear this right off the bat, that if you do not feel in line with your goals, then it's time to make a course correct. Now, see, maybe we found ourselves moving forward in the wrong direction, hoping to get there. But today is your opportunity to course correct and get back on track. And not only make this the year where things change, but change in every area of your life. And that's exactly what we're looking here today, is to get clarity in every area of our life. So today I will dive into these 8 dimensions of wellness and why we need all of them. And I want you to hear this today. How many of us entered this year, have you ever felt successful in one area, but empty in another? How many of us have felt that way? Successful, like you're like, Sam, I'm successful in my job, but my relationships felt empty. You know what, Sam? Actually, I'm successful in my relationships, but my health is plateauing. I'm successful in my spiritual life, but my social life really isn't there. And that's exactly what we're really focusing on today. We're focusing on that very thing of having clarity in that direction that we want in our lives and realizing that that matters. And I love it. It says, have you ever thought, I'm doing everything right, so why do I still feel off? Because I found myself in that same way. I felt like I was doing everything right. I was I was, I'm an entrepreneur. So as an entrepreneur, you're sending emails, you're making phone calls, you're reaching out to businesses, you're touch base with your clients, you're leading your business. I felt like I was doing every single thing. At the end of the day, I still felt empty in my life in some areas. And that's exactly what I want you to leave here today with some clarity in the direction of your life. So as we step into this day with clarity, with strength, I want you to start to ask yourself, have you ever felt successful in one area but still felt empty? And if you can jump into this, identifying that area, that's a powerful moment right there. When you realize, like, man, you know what? I love my job, but I'm feeling empty in the finances. And maybe you find yourself today that I felt like you feel like you're doing everything. You're doing everything right. So why do you still feel off? I'm hoping this gives you not only clarity in the direction of your life, but clarity with confidence, clarity and growth, but clarity knowing that things can change when you start to make the right direction in your life. And that's exactly the opportunity we're going to have today as we dive into these 8 dimensions of wellness. So I want you to hear that today. If you feel in the here, you're like, man, I finally feel heard in my life. I felt like I've been doing everything for such a long time, and I still feel off. My message to you is that you're not alone, but that things can change if you're willing to change. And that's exactly what we're diving into today. So let's get this party started. So, what holistic self love actually means, right? I mean, what does really holistic self love actually mean? It doesn't just mean a bubble bath every once in a while and I'm just holistically taken care of. It doesn't just mean that, ice cream on Fridays, I have a little bit of life balance. So I get the ice cream on Mondays, but I work out on Wednesdays. It's not just, you know, a one size fits all approach to life. And I really love this. It says the core statement, it says self love is alignment across all dimensions of your life, not just alignment in your health, but alignment in your finances, not just alignments in your social life, but alignment in your relationships, not just alignment in your job, but alignment in your spiritual circles. I want you to think about that when it comes to your goals and dreams, when it comes to your year this far, are the decisions you've made and the actions you've taken align with the life that you had? Align or in alignment with the vision you have for yourself. Because that's what I really want to focus on today is living in alignment with what you truly desire out of life. But most of in alignment with love. So what is holistic self-love actually mean? Self-love is not just emotional. I want you to hear that today. Maybe you're like, love is like an emotion, right? We're taught that love is an emotion. It's like I have butterflies in my chest, or we have Tweety birds flying around our heads and love birds, they call it, right? But self-love is not just an emotion. Self-love is not just fitness. Like, many times we hear self-love is me taking that walk, meditating, taking that bubble bath we talked about, making our health an important. Maybe we hear self-love is like, I'm eating healthy, so I'm loving myself. But I want you to hear this today. That's not just it. Self-love is not just fitness. You know, self-love is like we talked about, self-love is not just a bubble bath for affirmations. It's not just how we talk to ourselves. And self-love is not just how we treat ourselves. Self-love isn't just, that bubble bath that we have every once in a while. You're like, I've taken that spa day. That's not just self-love. But I really want to talk about what self-love is. Self-love is responsible across your entire life. And that's what truly woke me up when I realized that wasn't just one action. It was the action across every area of my life. I want you to hear that today. It's love across every area. And it's not just emotional. It's not just fitness. It's not just that bubble bath or those affirmations or the way I speak to myself. It's not just my morning meditation. It's not just my morning yoga. It's how I treat myself in every area of my life. Because self-love is alignment across all dimensions of life. I want you to hear that today. That self-love is alignment across all areas. That if one area is suffering, I'm going to suffer in every other area because it's about having that holistic alignment of love in every area. And so now we're going to talk about those 8 dimensions of wellness. We're talking about the emotional, the spiritual, the intellectual, the physical, how our environment, right? Our financial, our occupational, and our social. How many of us were shocked when we realized that, man, there's so many dimensions of life. I think many times for the longest time, when I thought of self-love, I thought if I took care of the physical, I'd be great in every other area. How many were taught that? I think physical is one of those things that I feel like is a foundational motion, but I realized that just because I took care of myself physically didn't mean I was going to be nailing it in my social life. Just because I took care of myself physically didn't mean I was going to be emotionally, nailing it in my emotions. Just because I took care of myself physically doesn't mean I was going to be loving myself spiritually. Just because I physically took care of myself didn't mean my finances were going to be great, right? That's crazy to think that I'm going to be in the gym 90% of the day and I'm going to be a millionaire now, right? My finances are taken care of. That would be silly to think about, but many of us do that. I realized for a long time in my life, that's how I was operating. I was operating out of one dimension. I was so focused on one dimension that every dimension of my life suffered. I need you to hear that today. I was focused on one dimension in my life and everything else suffered. And that was my big wake up call that I realized that, man, life is bigger than not only just physical, but life is not just bigger than just finances. Like I realized I was in a season of my life where my finances were great. Everything was going great, but my social life was down. And I'm not saying that some seasons are going to be challenging like that. Some seasons are, your job's going to take that first priority. So your physical is kind of suffer. But it's really about finding that holistic approach to life so that we don't have to suffer in one dimension, or we're not just top heavy in one dimension, that we can be holistically loving ourselves in every dimension of our lives. Who would love that today? Who would love to be like, man, to not feel that void in my spiritual life, to not feel that void in my occupational and my intellectual, that I can wake up each day having love in that social life. And I want you to shoot down in that comment section, what area of my life, by just looking at this list, is something I know I need more work on. Can anybody just look at this list? I mean, as you look at it, maybe you look at this list and you're just shocked. You're just shocked that there's more than one. You're like, there's this many dimensions when it comes to my holistic life, when it comes to the dimensions of my life. Like I never thought about the emotional side. I never thought about my spiritual life, my intellectual. I never thought about my occupation as a form of love to myself. I never thought how finance is tied into my self-love, how my environment impacted the way I love myself and the way I love others. I never realized how I physically take care of myself is the way I'm going to bring into this world. And I want you to really tie this in, that if you find yourself like, man, I'm just simply still Sam, I'm still sitting here in shock, in awe, I want you to realize that you're not alone. And we always pull towards our strength, right? Haven't we seen that? We always pull towards our strength. So if I'm really confident and clear in my physical, I'm going to be more heavy dominant on that. If I'm confident and more clear in my occupation, I'm going to lean in fully into that spectrum. But the goal today is to not only look in each dimension, but find clarity in the dimensions. Because when we have clarity in every dimension of our life, we have more confidence in every dimension of our life. And that's the end goal that I have for you, but I want you to have for yourself. to realize that I no longer have to settle for second best, but that I can have a holistic approach to my life and I can love myself in every area as well. So we're going to dive right on into our first dimension. Like I talked about, we're going to be talking about our first dimension, which is physical wellness. And what is physical wellness, right? What is physical wellness mean to me in my life? And I really love that the fact that I like to say when it comes to physical wellness, I think we tend to name it, right? When we say physical wellness, we think it's the gym. But I like to say when it comes to physical wellness, it comes down to movement. Now, exercise to me could be dancing, that could be swimming, that could be running, that could be cutting the lawn, that could be doing yard work, that could be a building project. It really comes down to physical wellness is just simply movement. It doesn't have to be in the gym. It could be your favorite dance class, it could be yoga. It's simply how do you move your body? But most importantly, I want to ask you that question. Are you making time for your physical wellness with movement? Because that's one of the foundational parts of physical wellness is movement. If you had to rate yourself this week, how have you moved your body? Have you made an intention this week to move your body? Have you made an intention to move? Whether that be exercising, working out, swimming, that walk, that jog, that yoga. How have you moved your body this week? Or maybe we go deeper. How have you moved your body this year so far? We jump into the new year, and what's the first thing that's kind of the first goal everybody sets is that gym goal, right? We set the gym goal. We're like, you know what? This is going to be the year where I work out. We sign up for that gym membership. How is it going so far? If you had to rate yourself out of 1 through 10 when it comes to movement, how would you rate yourself? And then when it comes, one of our pillars when it comes to physical wellness is nutrition. How are you fueling your body? I like to think about a car, right? We all put gas in our car. And what is the fuel that you're giving your body to perform with? Like I say, I wouldn't put orange juice in my gas tank because I knew it wouldn't work. And is the fuel that you're giving your body, is it allowing you to perform to the level that you would like? Because I believe nutrition is going to fuels us for our movement. So those things are those pillars when it comes to your nutrition. If you had to rate your nutrition, what would you rate it? How are you fueling yourself? Are you eating healthy? Do you have dietary restrictions? Are you following your restrictions? Are the food is crazy that, right? The food pyramid flipped upside down this year. If you haven't known, if you haven't known that, the food pyramid flipped upside down. So are you putting in more vegetables? Are you getting more greens, leafy greens? But then this is the one I had really woke me up. It's funny because it's sleep, right? It's funny that it talks about sleep. Are you making your rest a priority? Are you getting those sleepless nights, or are you focused so hard in one area that you're sacrificing your sleep? It's one of those dimensions like we talked about earlier. Like, I'm so focused on my job that I'm not getting very good sleep. When's the last time you got 8 hours of sleep? That's kind of what they say is that it allows our circadian rhythm to reset is in 8 hours. Are you making sleep a priority? Are you getting it? How many days a week are you getting your 8 hours of sleep? That was something I had to look at myself. Yeah, how many times a week am I getting those 8 hours of sleep? Or am I having days where I'm getting 4 hours or 6 hours? Or how many days am I getting consecutive days of rest? And then we look at our energy management. How am I managing my energy? How am I feeling halfway through the day? Have I run at 100 miles an hour from 9 a.m. to 3, and then I'm just dead halfway through the day? Or am I managing my energy throughout the day? Am I taking those walks to refresh? Am I meditating throughout the day? Am I taking a nap? And then here's a reflection I want to give you. How is your body doing right now? If you had to grade yourself on those 4 pillars, if you had to look at my movement, this week so far, if I was looking at my nutrition so far, if I was looking at my sleep for the past 7 days, have I been looking at my energy? If I'm looking at how I've been managing my energy for the past 7 days, how is my body really doing? How are you feeling in your skin? How are you truly feeling? I think that's a great question of reflection. How is your body really doing right now? And if you're wondering, man, I haven't really asked myself that question, a great way to find some clarity is to think about how many times have I worked out? They say averagely about at least 3 times a week at minimum is to work out 60 minutes a day at least. Nutrition, are you eating a balanced meal? Do you have your leafy green vegetables? Are you hitting your protein? Are you getting enough protein in your meals? Are you hydrating properly? Are you drinking enough water? Sleep, how many consecutive days are you truly getting your 8 hours of sleep? Are you allowing your body to truly rest? Are you managing your energy? Are you feeling worn out halfway through the day? Are you coming home from work totally exhausted? How are you managing your energy? And this is a great question to ask yourself. How is your body really? Now we're going to go into our second one. We're going to go into our emotional awareness, right? Realizing that our emotions matter throughout our day. Do you have that self-awareness throughout the day? Like we talked about, how do you have that self-awareness? Are you aware of how you are feeling this day? Because this is when I really had to, my regulation. Am I loving my boundaries? Am I honoring my boundaries? And when it comes to my emotional wellness, am I allowing myself to process my emotions? See, I was so focused on physical, I never thought about my emotional wellness. How am I feeling today? Have I ever asked myself, how am I feeling today? Are you holding up your boundaries? Are you boundarying your time? Like, making that boundary of, am I rest? Am I making rest a priority? I think that's a powerful motion when we truly look at our emotional wellness. Would you had to grade yourself from 1 through 10 by self-awareness? How would you grade yourself as a self-awareness wise? How would you grade yourself when it comes to your regulation? Are you feeling regular? How are you feeling regularly in your body? Like, how are your emotions regularly? Are you just a happy person? Are you feeling more happy and joyful throughout the day? How are your boundaries when it comes to your emotions? When it comes to the people that like, are you honoring your boundaries when it comes to your emotions? Like, not letting that negative energy, we call it, coming in. Are you processing your emotions? Are you giving yourself time? And I love this reflection. It says, do you process your emotions or you suppress them? I think it was a hard truth for myself. I realized I was suppressing my emotions a lot. I was wanting to be the happy, happy, joyful person for everyone else, but I wasn't being that person for myself. So I would suppress my emotions. When people asked me how I felt, I would just not, process them. I would just keep pushing them down until one day they would build up and bubble over. But I love that each and every day when you rank time for self-awareness in your emotions, you have confidence. You can step into the room knowing that this is how I'm going to show up today. Or there's some things that need more time for processing. I love how it says processing your emotions. Have you truly sat down with yourself and processed, how do you really feel? And I love that question for reflection. Do you process your emotions or are you just simply suppressing them? And that's a question. How many of us have been truly suppressing our emotions this year so far? You started this year off frustrating, you're just been pushing it down even more. Now we're going to go into our next one, our social wellness. Now we're going to go into our next key is social wellness. How are our relationships? Do you have those friendships, those long-term friendships, that relationships at your job? Not just relationships, with your spouse or significant other, but how is your relationships throughout all? We don't think we think about socially. How are you doing socially? How are those relationships at your job doing? How are those relationships in your community, right? How is your social wellness in your relationships? How would you grade that 1 through 10? In your community, how would you grade your social wellness in your community? Are you involved in community events? Do you volunteer locally? Do you go to those local meetups? How often do you involved in your community? Do you go to those parents' night outs? Do you go to those movies at the park? Are you involved in your community? And when it comes to your social wellness, how are you in communication? Are you talking to others? We live in a digital world where it's face to face. After COVID has become the awkward thing. It's odd walking in public and saying hi to people. They're like, are you talking to me? And I think communication is going to be an art that's going to be most as technology becomes more and more efficient. I would like to call it communication has become more efficient. I think face to face is going to be even more valuable because we find ourselves in a life where you might be talking to a robot, and I'm real. I'm real. I promise. You're not talking to an AI, Sam. This is a real me. But eventually, technology is getting good enough where it might just be you might be talking to a robot the entire time. AI is getting that crazy good. So, how is your communication? When is the last guy? How's your communication when it comes to one of us? Are you having those open conversations? But most importantly, the one that I like to say the most powerful one is how is your support system? How are your support systems? When it comes to your social wellness, how are your support systems? Do you have those friends you can go through when times are challenging? Do you have those people you can ask for when you need more clarity in a certain situation? And I really love this reflection. How are you becoming around the people in your life? I think that's a powerful question. Who are you becoming around the people in your life? Because I think that's a powerful thing. Our social circle matters. I love to, one of my favorite books said, you will become you will be your level of success is dictated by the 5 people you hang around with the most. Now, who are the 5 people you hang around with the most? And if you find yourself in a circle of your social circle is a circle of 1, we got some work to do, right? We got some right. If you find yourself in a circle of 5, a circle of 5 people that you're like, man, I wouldn't want to be where any of these people are. It's time to change your circle. One of my favorite quotes, I think, is from one of my favorite quotes is, your level, like we talked about, the level of success is equivalent to the 5 closest friends, right? And if you find your closest friends are in a circle of, if they're in a place where you don't want to be, it's time to change your circle. And if you're the smartest person in your circle, that was what it was. It was if you're the smartest person in your circle, you need to find a new circle. So I think that's what gives us the power of we are more clear that we need a better circle. We need a better support system. What is something, I want you to look at this board and ask yourself, could my relationships be better? Do I need a better community? How can my communication, could my communication need some work? I could be honest with that. Do I need a better support system? And this is where we need to have clarity when we have that so holistic approach to our lives. That who are you becoming around the people who are in your life? And are the people in your life heading in the direction that you want to head? And now we're going to go into our spiritual wellness. Where is your purpose leading you? Where is your faith leading you? Are you finding meaning when it comes to your spiritual wellness? What is the meaning in your life? And are you in alignment? I think that's so powerful right here. Spiritual wellness. And I'm not just talking about just religion. I'm talking spiritual wellness is a true thing. Are you on purpose? Do you have that faith life? Is your faith in line? Do you have that spiritual meaning in your life? Is your wellness that meaning? Do you have that meaning? But most importantly, are you in alignment with your life? Your alignment with your goals? Are you truly in alignment? Is the love that you have in this life, your spiritual wellness, are you in alignment with your life? And I love this reflection here. Do you feel connected to something bigger than yourself? Because that's what spiritual wellness is. Do you feel like this universe, I am connected in this beautiful well, like I feel like, man, we are in the greatest, like to think that I can be in my office right now speaking to you in your bedroom, on the road. You could be in a park. I don't know where you are right now, but the fact that I have this opportunity to speak with you is just truly amazing. And I realize that I don't take this for granted. Just the fact that you even made it this far is amazing in itself. And do you feel connected to something bigger? Like life is bigger than me and you. Isn't that powerful? That you are a part of something greater than any of us can even imagine. But do you feel that way? Do you feel that you're truly a part of something bigger than yourself? Purposeful wise, you feel like, man, I'm on purpose. What is your purpose in this life? Do you have clarity when it comes to your faith? Do you have, like, if you had to grade yourself when it comes to meaning, do you feel like you know the meaning of your life? And most importantly, when it comes to alignment, but the actions you've taken, the decisions you've made this year so far, are you spiritually in alignment to something bigger? And I want to give you that question of reflection. Do you feel connected to something bigger than yourself? That's our question for you today. And we're going to go to our fifth. It's our lynch into intellectual wellness. It's really focusing on growth. I think growth is a part of life. I think one of our greatest human needs is growth because, just like plants, if you're not growing, I feel like we're dying. But one of the greatest things of life meaning is truly growing in life. You don't want to be a baby forever. You want to see progress along your journey. And that's why intellectual wellness is super important because growth not scheduled equals no change. So have you made time for growth in your life? Maybe you're leaning so heavily on your physical wellness that you never really thought about your intellectual wellness. Like, how am I growing mentally? Like, what lessons am I learning? Have you scheduled growth? What have you learned this year? What are you learning this year? What is your level of learning this year so far? Have you learned something new? Your level of curiosity. How are you feeding that level of curiosity when you have those questions in your life? Are you searching for the answer? Or are you just leaving it out there? Are you expanding your perspective? And that's why I love books. Like, man, what has really helped me is Audible. Like picking a book a week, just a book to listen to, has opened my mind to things that I'm like, crazy. It's crazy. Like, man, I wish I would have loved books when I was a kid. I was crazy what you could learn in a book, but most importantly, like learn in life, like YouTube. We have so many levels, like with AI, there's so many tools to learn now, which my new favorite tool is Notebook LM. Oh my gosh, just learning how to learn. Build yourself that lesson plan. And I love our question for reflection here. It says, are you growing or just consuming? And I really love how it differentiates between the two because we live in a world where scrolling is the norm. We sit on our phones and we'll scroll all day. And we're like, man, you saw that story. We're just scroll, scroll, scroll. So we're just consuming, but not truly growing. We're consuming, but not truly leveling up our mindset. We're consuming, but we're not expanding our perspectives for growth, for learning, for curiosity. I want you to hear that today. How is your intellectual wellness? And that's our question for reflection. Are you growing or just consuming? Let's get to our next dimension, our occupational wellness. See, I love this because I think many times we don't think about self-love as we don't think about our occupational wellness, right? But are you fulfilled when it comes to your job? Are you working from fulfillment? Are you working from, I needed this job? Is your work in alignment? I've worked with many people who have said, they worked at a job and it just wasn't in alignment with what they could do. And they wonder why they find themselves only on this ladder. Like, I've been working here 8 years and I've never gotten to that next level. or you find yourself stuck at a certain plateau because I remember working a job and it paid the bills, it had all the benefits, but it wasn't in alignment with what I wanted to do with my life. So as promotions came, as opportunities to level up, I just never saw myself doing more. So I found myself settling for less and never allowing myself to achieve the best because it wasn't in alignment. And when you're not in alignment, you're stuck. And do you find purpose in your work? Like I talked about earlier, I didn't find purpose in my work. Now it's been crazy. I'm thankful for where I'm at, but I found myself that I find so much purpose in my work. I feel like I haven't worked in 5 years. I truly feel like I haven't worked. I'm not saying it's not challenging at times. I'm not saying it's not tough, but I'm saying that I find so much perfect purpose in alignment with what I do that I don't even feel like I'm working anymore. But most importantly, how we set healthy boundaries in our work. Have you set healthy boundaries at work? Have you had those healthy boundaries along your journey? And I love this question for reflection. Does your work drain you or develop you? That's a great question right there. And that's going to answer everything right there. If you're wondering, like, Sam, if I'm kind of teeter-tottering, if I'm in alignment, this question for reflection right there helps you. Does your work drain you or develop you? I want you to hear that today. Are you finding that fulfillment? Are you finding that alignment? Because it starts right there. Does your work drain you or develop you? Are you feeling developed? Are you feeling joyful through the process? I know there's going to be seasons of challenge for all of us, but do you have those healthy boundaries at work? Like when you're off the clock, you're off the clock. You're not at midnight, they call you and you're on. I love that. Now we're going to go to our seventh area right here, our financial wellness, which I think is so important because this really goes down into it. Like, I mean, how many of us, like, I know for myself, when my finances were tough, I was so focused on work that I didn't even put my health on the back burner. But had you had that financial wellness, when's the last time you truly looked at your bank account? Are you stable in your finances? Do you find yourself when I go to the store, I'm wondering, am I going to have enough? Like, that's just simple financial awareness. When's the last time you truly looked at your bank account? How much you have in your bank account before you go somewhere? Or are you always praying that car goes through? Because I love how it talks about, are you stable in your finances? Have you planned? Do you know when the bills are coming out? But most importantly, have you taken simple ownership? Have you taken simple ownership of your finances so far this year? When it comes to your goals and dreams. Because I believe that we know when we have financial clarity, it gives us financial calm. I want you to hear that today. When you have clarity, you have calm. When you have clarity, you have confidence. Who here today would love to have some financial awareness? And that simply comes with looking at your bank account. It could be as simple as that. Just having the awareness of how much I have in my account. So when I know I go to that register, I know when that car is going to go through. And I love this question for reflection, how it says, you are in control of your money. Or are you just simply avoiding it? I know we've all been to that point, right? We've just been avoiding it, like, oh, I know those stresses are coming through and you're just hoping you have enough. But I love this. It says, are you in control of your money? Or are you avoiding it? Because I love this word, control. Because are you in control? And the reason I ask you that is because you can be in control. You can be in control of your finances. You can have that financial awareness. You can have financial stability. You can have financial planning. You can have financial ownership. And that is simply a choice. A choice that you can make each and every day. So I want you to really reflect on that. Are you in control of your money? Or are you just simply avoiding it? And then we're going to go into our last one right here. This is one I didn't realize how much it impacted me more than anything. Your environment matters. It's just like one of the favorite things, when it comes to animal species. Lizards will not outgrow their enclosure. Whoo, I need you to hear that today. Lizards will not outgrow their enclosure. So the box you place yourself in, the environment you place yourself in, dictates your level of growth. Whoo, I need somebody to hear that today. Your environment you place yourself in dictates your level of growth. So if you find yourself in a season where, Sam, I'm wanting more, it's time to start looking at your environment. If you realize that you won't grow like a plant, it will only grow to the level of its root system. Isn't that crazy? The plant will only grow as tall as the level of its root system. So a tree can only get so big, like those bonsai trees, they keep clipping trimming the tree. That's why it's a tiny tree. It comes up to be a tiny tree. And many of us are environments that are slowly chipping away at your confidence, chipping away at your joy. So it clips you, so you'll never get bigger. You find yourself in environments that just keep chopping at your bits, keeps pruning you, pruning your joy, pruning your peace, pruning your strength. And we wonder why we don't get much bigger. It's time to start looking at your environment. But most importantly, I like to say it all starts with your physical space. If your room is dirty and a cluttered room, is a reflection of what's going on in your mind. Isn't that crazy? That what we accept in our physical environment is it what we accept in our mental environment. How we're doing mentally is how our physical space looks. So if your physical space is messy, most likely you have a lot going on in your brain so far. And cleanliness, is it clean around you? Isn't it crazy? Like, you had people like, they had these professional cleaners. I'm a big fan of this show called Hoarders. I'm not a hoarder, but it's crazy to watch like what, it is an illness. At this point, I'm like, and there's no way they didn't know that their house like that. But if you have so much going on mentally, I can only imagine how your environment just slowly drains on you. Like it just became, and to know that a hoarder's house started with this one box. And that one box started to two boxes. And that two box started to be like, you see people walking through just hallways. They're talking walking through like a foot space throughout their house because they have so much stuff on either side of them. But like just to see the release of pressure when they have this clean room is crazy. And I know how I feel when I have a clean room. Like when everything's clean, it's just like there's like a feeling of like a weight is almost off your shoulders. Could you be more organized? Because I love this how it says your environment shapes your identity. Wow. Isn't that crazy? How your environment shapes your identity? And I found myself in a hard situation. I was in an environment that no longer served me. And I had to make a choice that was really tough. It was a really tough decision. It was like, I stay here and I continue to press myself in this box and never grow. I'm going to step out in fear. And it was like everything opened. It was crazy for me. It was like, as long as I was in this box, nothing was expanding. I was probably in this box. I was in the worst shape of my life. My finances were in the worst condition. My social life was in the worst condition. Every area of my life was shrinking because of the box that I had placed myself in. It was the environment. But it was crazy. As I stepped outside of that environment, it almost felt like a pop-up book. As I stepped out, everything started to expand around me. And that was one of the greatest moments of my life. As I realized that I had that power all along to change my environment. And I want you to hear that as well. So if you feel like you're placed in a cage, placed in a box, placed in a place where no longer serves you, I encourage you to step out through the fear, step out through the doubt, but step out knowing that growth is on the other side. And I love this question for reflection here. It says, does your space calm your nervous system or activate stress? And I think that right there, when I had that distinction, when I was always second guessing myself, but That question right there changed everything for me. Does your space calm your nervous system or does it activate stress? It's simply powerful. And I love that. I love that for you when you find that question. So I want to talk about the wheel metaphor here. The key concept, your life is like a wheel with eight spokes. If one spoke is weak, your ride becomes unstable, right? It's like, have you ever like hit a curb on a bike? It's just a horrible. I had a friend one time riding a bicycle. It was like one of those thin tires. And here in Austin, a lot of people have those road bikes. Try to pop a curb, bent the rim, so then you have that little dip in your wheel every time. And here's your message: you cannot compensate in one area or dimension for neglect in another. I need you to hear that today. No matter how much you work in your physically, you can't fix your finances. How much you work in your finances, you can't fix your relationships. It'd be like, man, Sam, I'm nailing it at my job. Will never fix your spiritual life. So no matter how much you overcompensate in one dimension for neglect in another area, it will never fix it. So I want you to think about the wheel of your life. What are those areas you automatically know, man, I am working out 3 days a week. I have a strength plan program. I'm working out. But I don't feel too confident in my finances. Oh man, Sam, I'm nailing it in my finances. I'm actually I'm on track to my 401k is on track. I got a Roth IRA. On my social life, I don't really have that support system that I thought I had. And I want you to hear that today. That your life is like a wheel with eight spokes. If one area is weak, your ride will be unstable and your life will feel unstable. But also know that you can't just compensate in one area. Just because my finances are tough, since my finances are rough, I'm gonna just focus on my job. And I'm gonna work at that job overtime. I'm not gonna neglect my health. So realizing that it's not just diving in one area, it's about having that holistic approach to really change your life and realizing that balance is possible, but balance is necessary when it comes to self-love. So I want to talk about how neglect truly spreads, right? And this is the core message of everything we have, is that everything is connected. Like I talked about, your financial stress leads to emotional anxiety, right? Think about that. You're financially stressed. You're like, man, I don't know how I'm going to pay this bill. So now you have that emotional anxiety. When you go to that register, am I going to have enough to buy groceries for the week? Now that I have that emotional anxiety, it leads to like a fever. Usually like when you're stressed out, you get sick, right? That's usually how a sickness comes. So now I can't go to the gym because now I'm sick. This stress that I have got me sick. And now I can't show up to work. Now I'm behind on my work because I had to take off because I'm sick. And now I'm so backed up at work that I'm working overtime and now I'm burnt out. See, I really want you to understand how neglect spreads so simple. It's that little neglect goes a long way. It all started with a little bit of stress in my finances, and now I'm neglecting my job. And I need you to understand that everything is connected. Everything's connected. Isn't that powerful? And what if I decided to have more clarity on my finances? I wouldn't have that emotional anxiety when I went to the register because I'm clear in my finances now. I looked at my bank account this morning. I knew how much I had in there. So therefore, I went to the store and I have emotional clarity. I know how much I can spend. Now that I know how much I can spend, I'm not anxiety. I can eat those healthy foods. I bought a healthy meal for myself. And now that I had that healthy meal, I have the energy to show up to my job. And now that I have that energy to show up to my job, I'm not stressed out. I did what I could with the amount of energy that I had. And that's just how we continue to build those successful loops in our lives, the holistic loop, and realize that everything is connected. So I want you to hear that. And I want to talk about the top three most ignored dimensions are usually the ones that matter the most as our finances, our environmental, and our occupational. You know, the physical, emotional, spiritual, and intellectual, most people focus on fitness and emotions. Few address the money, work, and space. Isn't that true? Most of us don't think about our jobs as being part of our wellness. We don't think about how our environment impacts us. We don't think about how our finances are that foundation. We always think about when it comes to physical wellness, when it comes to wellness, I think of fitness, right? But I want you to really start to look at these dimensions in our lives and where have I been neglecting myself? Has it been financially? Has it been in my environment? Are things a little bit more messy around me? Has it been in my job? Am I pushing myself to burn out? I want to do a little bit of a deep dive in our financial wellness and how when we start to take that financial ownership is self-respect. I want you to hear that today. Financial ownership is self-respect. The key point here is simply money stress is chronic stress. How many of us find ourselves stressing over money, stressing if I'll have enough for the bills, stressing if I'm going to make the rent, stressing if I'll have enough for groceries? Because avoidance creates anxiety. If you aren't looking at your account, if you don't have clarity, you're going to have that anxiety. And I want to give you some simple action steps that you can take each and every day or each and every week. Just review your numbers weekly. If you looked at your account, you would have more clarity as you went to the stores and bought things. Or just simply create a budget like, hey, I have enough money to spend this week. Outside of this budget, I don't spend. Or automate one saving habit. This one's been a game changer for me. I just put 20 days a week out of each paycheck. It adds up. 20 bucks a week. I just put into savings as a self-respect thing. It's just a simple task that goes a long way. Create these simple budgeting hacks. We're going to do a little deep dive in the environmental space. Your space influences your discipline. I need you to hear that today. Your space influences your discipline. Clutter equals cognitive load. It's like, if we're in a cluttered space equals a cluttered mind. And how your environment shapes your identity. So I like to think about, if somebody's probably a messy dresser, they probably live in a messy house, right? And if their space is cluttered, their mind's going to be cluttered. And these are just some simple action steps. Clean one high impact area at a time. So maybe you're like, Sam, I have a busy house. Can we have a clean bathroom? Right? Can we just have one clean space? And I want you to realize it's the power of one. Because once you have that clean space in your bathroom, you want to know those crazy things going to happen? You're going to be there often. You're going to notice people, when they come to your house, even yourself, tend to navigate to the cleanest room, the most openest space. And what's really helped me is remove 5 items daily, a simple thing. Just take 5 items that you know are just trash. Can you just simply pick up 5 things that you know need to be maybe put away, need to be thrown away, or even given away? And like I talked about, having that one calm corner. One corner where I don't put any boxes here, I don't put any clutter there. It's just an open space that will always be clean and that I know is like my safe little corner. Like nothing goes there. It always is a clean corner. We're going to do that next one. And we're going to look at occupational wellness. I want to talk about this. Survival mode is not purpose mode. I need you to hear that. Survival mode is not purpose mode. And the key point is misalignment leaks into every area. When you are misaligned, it leaks into every area of your life. But most importantly, what I want you to hear today is that you deserve meaningful work. You deserve to wake up each and every day excited to go to the very thing you're working for, that you're working towards. Like you can truly enjoy your job when you're aligned. And the action steps are simple here. Identify what drains you and what develops you. Does your job drain you or develop you? Do you feel like you're learning, like you just can't wait to learn something new or share something with others? But most importantly, having those alignment conversations. See, the best thing about this is when you start surrounding yourself in alignment with what you do, you'll find people who are other that are aligned in what you do. And when that happens, you have more of those aligned conversations. And this has been the game changer for me is exploring one growth opportunity each week. Just whether it be bouncing ideas off of others. For me, it was a networking group. But just what is a growth opportunity? It could be a networking group. It could be a lesson learn, like outside of work learning, a book. Explore growth opportunities. But most importantly, have those, realize that you deserve meaningful work. So powerful. You deserve meaningful work. All right, friends. So, hey, I want you to give yourself an opportunity. If you could rate yourself 1 through 10 in each dimension, where would you be? I want you to think about this assessment as a wheel. This is a wheel. And I want you to rate yourself as we looked at ours, as we looked at those dimensions of our life physically. How have you done this year so far? How are you doing? Let's look at your life assessment. If I had to rate myself 1 through 10 physically, have I worked out this week? Am I eating healthy foods? How is my sleep? What would you give yourself? When it comes to my emotional, how much am I processing my emotions? Am I aware of the emotions that I have? Am I keeping those proper boundaries? When it comes to my social life, 1 through 10, am I involved in my community? Have I do I have a support system around me? When's the last time I talked to people that are close to me? My others, like my family. Spiritually, am I living in alignment? How's my faith? Intellectually, how am I learning? Am I growing? What's something I've learned recently? Have I learned a new skill? Have I learned something new that I could share to the world? Occupational, is my job in alignment with what I'm looking to achieve? When it comes to financial awareness, how aware am I when it comes to my finances? And when we look at our last one, environmental, how is my environment? Is it clean? Is it cluttered? Do I have a safe space to step into, or is this clutter equal clutter in my mind? Is the clutter on the outside a reflection of what's going on in my mind? And if you colored in those circles on this wheel, would your wheel be even throughout, or is it going to have some bumps? What are our strong areas? What are our weak areas? And I want you to look at that as a wheel. Would it be a bumpy ride? How many of us would be looking at this wheel and be like, man, I have a pretty bumpy ride. This looks like an off-road tire. But it just gives us an opportunity for clarity. I want this to be an exercise that empowers you, because clarity equals confidence. And I want you to look at that. Are you looking at your lowest score? So you look at the area you need. Which dimension score the lowest? What improvement looks like, And I think the biggest thing is, we look at these areas. Even just one colored space would be a game changer for any of you, right? Any area, just even 1+1 improvement looks like. You don't need to fix everything. You just got to start with one area. And the best thing about that is once you work on one area, it snowball effects on the others. So like if I'm looking over here, I'm say my wellness is really low. As I start to wellness, my social life will go up because maybe I meet more people at the gym. And maybe when I go to the gym, I have a new support system. I have that guy in the corner that's always cheering me on. I went to the gym, I got a personal trainer. So now my social life, every day I go to the gym, I talk to my trainer the entire time while I'm working out. And also as well as I now have a support system. I have somebody to support me along my journey. I love that. And I want you to ask yourself that question. As you look at your lowest dimension scored, what would a 1% look like? What would a 1% action? What is the one action that I know could bring this percentage up for me? Can I go to more, like if I'm looking at social, can I go to more networking events? Could I say hi to my neighbor? Could I be that support system for somebody else so they can be the support system for me? Isn't that powerful? I want you to hear this framework. It all starts with awareness, admitting the gap. Then, two, taking ownership. You're going to stop blaming. But most importantly, is step three is one action. Move this week. Because that's where real change starts. Real change starts with that one action to move. And maybe you found yourself this year moving in the wrong direction, moving from fear, moving from doubt. But today is time to move with clarity. And I want to give you something super powerful. I want to offer you a free wellness wheel. Yes, free wellness alignment assessment. It's 100% free. We're going to ask you the questions. We're going to score you through the 8 dimensions of wellness. We're going to get you a score. And I'm going to give you 3 key strategies, not only of bringing up your lowest scores, but giving you clarity in the direction that you want your life to go. How many of us want more clarity in our lives? How many of us are ready to take more ownership? But most importantly, how many of us are ready to take that one action? And this is what I challenge you to do. So sign up. I'm going to put the link under this post. I'm going to put the link in the comments here. I want you to sign up for your free 8 dimensions assessment. Let's move this year with clarity, but move this year with a level of self-love and holistically levels us up in the right direction of our lives. I'm super thankful for you guys for reaching out to here. Make sure you follow me on Instagram and Facebook and TikTok at Real Success with Sam. Please feel free to reach out to me, DM me, let me know something you learned. Let me know one of your weaker areas in this framework. I'll love to share it with you. And most importantly, get your free self-love 8 dimensions assessment today. And move with clarity. Make this the year you move with clarity. Make this the year you move along with awareness, but make this the year you move along with ownership, knowing that you're only one action away from changing your life. So take care, friends. Make this that year that you decide who you will become. Because it's up to you. It's up to you. I need you to hear that today. It's up to you to change your life. It's up to you to make that decision. It's up to you to realize that not only you deserve more, but it's time for you to be more. So I would love for you so like I said again, make sure you share this live with someone that needed to hear it. Make sure you share this live with someone that needed to hear it. But most importantly, make sure you get that free 8 dimensions self-love assessment today. It's been a game changer for me, so I know it'll be a game changer for you. Take care.